Hello book lovers, and welcome back, or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today we are here for a very short wrap up of the second half of August. Alright guys, so I almost didn't film this video because I technically only have 4 books to talk about. I did go into quite a reading slump after the first half of the month. If you want to check out what I read in the first 18 days, I will go ahead and link up my wrap up for the first half of the month. I read like 12 books at that time, so there's definitely a lot more to talk about there. But today we are going to go through the overall stats for the month as well as just review the 4 books that I read. However, before we go through that, I wanted to quickly show some merch that I purchased that was inspired by the series that put me into the reading slump. As you may see here, I have the Foxhole Court, or All for the Game series is what it's called. The Foxhole Court is book 1 by Nora Safkovic, and I did buy some merch after purchasing that. This is the merch I bought the first time I read the series, and this time I got a tote bag that I want to share with you. I have a feeling every time I reread the series I'm gonna buy a new piece of merch. It's just gonna happen. So here is the card for the person that I purchased this from. Their handle on Instagram is LL Starcaster LL. You can kind of see it here at the bottom. I can't tell if that's clear or not. But here we have the bag. I haven't opened it yet, so I'm very excited to see what it looks like. I have wanted to get a tote bag for a while. I bought one in Germany, but unfortunately the handles are too short to like sling over my shoulder. So hopefully this one's a little bit better. All right. No, the handles I think are still too short. I mean, it's a little better, but not really. So I don't know if I just have bad luck with tote bags, but at least it has this really cute symbol on it, or design I should say. So Palomento State University is the university that the Foxes play at. It is a sports series, so we just have their label on that, and I think it's just really cute. And maybe next time I go book shopping, this is the bag I will take with me. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the basic stats for the month. I ended up reading a total of 16 books despite being in a reading slump the second half of the month. So not too shabby. The majority of the books I read were physical books, so the amount of pages I read is actually the highest it has been all year by quite a bit actually, sitting at 3,456 pages. The audiobook hours are obviously a little shorter, sitting at 31.10 hours. As far as the star ratings go, I had 2 5 stars this month. I had only one 4.5 star rating. I had a total of 8 4 stars this month, so the majority of my reads were 4 stars, which is fine with me. I think that's a great rating. And I had 3 3.5 star ratings, putting me at an average of a 4-star rating for the month. All right, and jumping into the first book, I finished All the Feels by Olivia Dade. This is a part of the series where book 1 is called Spoiler Alert, and I ended up giving the first book 5 stars. I was a little nervous to get into this one because it seems like the enjoyment of the books for the general public was decreasing the further along in the series we went, but I still wanted to go ahead and check out more work from her since I had such a positive experience with the first book. So this book follows Alex, and he is the friend and co-star of the male love interest in the first book. This character does have ADHD, which has caused him some difficulties throughout his career. He also is very invested in domestic violence due to his mother's history with an abusive spouse. On the other hand, we have Lauren, our plus-sized female love interest, and she is a kind of like a therapist or psychologist. She works like in ERs and kind of addresses people who are having a mental health crisis, but she was very burnt out after doing that for 13 years and decides to take a trip to Europe where her cousin, the producer, the well-hated producer of the show, asks her to babysit Alex after he gets into a bar fight. And so that's how the two of them come together and have to spend pretty much every waking moment together. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. So while I didn't like it as much as the first book, I still had a really great time with this. I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed their interactions, their banter, the conversations they had about their past life, their hope for their future, and how the two of them can make a future with each other work. I really enjoyed Lauren's journey to kind of standing up for herself. She has spent her entire life being looked down on. She's not traditionally attractive. She's kind of short, round, bird-like, as she's described multiple times throughout this story. And while she doesn't really let that get to her, she also lets it slide more than she should. So I really enjoyed kind of watching her stand up for herself throughout the story, and she learns a lot of that from seeing, for once in her life, someone else standing up for her and realizing that she deserves to do that. Alex, on the other hand, was a really fun, loving character. He has a lot of passion and he has some regrets in his past that heavily impact the way he treats people nowadays, and he very much puts himself and his needs second, and being with Lauren kind of made him realize that while he may think that he's the hero of the story by always putting other people first, sometimes that makes people very scared and uncomfortable because they don't want to be responsible for his downfall. So I thought there was a lot of great stuff going on with this, surrounded with good smut and humorous moments as well, and I would consider giving this book a shot. Up next, I ended up binging an online comic. You can buy the comics physically and they come in 5 different volumes, but I ended up counting this as only 1 volume just because I read it in one day. Pretty much one sitting, I read chapter 1 through 4 in the morning, and then in the evening when I got off work, read the final chapter, and that is Starfighter by Hamlet Machine. I will go ahead and put down below where you can go ahead and read that for free if you would like to try it out. This is a queer sci-fi graphic novel or comic, and we are following 2 young men. They are part of, I guess you would call it, the military. The humans have kind of colonized Mars, and there is another species that is trying to take that away from them. At least I'm 90% sure that's what's happening. There's some reason that they're fighting this species. And the way that they fight it is they have a fighter and they have a navigator, and they get into a ship. The navigator obviously navigates the ship, and the fighter is the one that blasts the cannons and kills the enemy kind of situation. And the fighters and the navigators are very different, and they tend not to interact with each other too much outside of the ship. The navigators are seen as physically weaker, but also superior due to their intellect. And the fighters are kind of seen as the wild dogs. They're the ones who maybe were recruited from the prison or from the outer colonies, and they're, you know, seen more as rough and tough kind of situation. So we are following 2 characters, 2 young men, Cain and Abel. Do I remember which is which? No, I don't. But they are placed together. I'm gonna say Kane. Kane is the fighter, Abel is the navigator. Yes, I remember. So Kane instantly claims Abel as his own by biting his lip and scarring him and telling everyone to stay the hell away from his navigator, which obviously you may not be surprised. He's gone through a few navigators, but Kane decides to stick with them, and the two of them actually end up forming a sexual relationship. So this book or this comic is pretty sex forward, and there are pretty explicit scenes in it. It's definitely 18 and over. And as we continue to follow these characters as they are fighting these battles, we start to see that there might be some sort of conspiracy going on among the higher ranking. So I gave this entire series a 4 stars. I did not rate them individually since I just kind of read them in one fell swoop. However, I did really enjoy the characters. I thought they were pretty intense. I thought their relationship was very interesting. I thought that the plot moved at a good pace and was very intriguing and well thought out. And for the most part, I did quite enjoy the art style. It's kind of not colored. It's like blacks, whites, and blues kind of situation going on. And I just thought that it was well worked and I really enjoyed the ending. So if you're looking for a quick series that you can binge in a day, may I suggest this one? The next 2 books I finished literally on the last day of the month. The first was an audiobook for This Is Kind of an Epic Love Story by Kason Calendar. I believe this book is actually on my September TBR, so I'm ahead of schedule on that TBR. Yay me. But this was a YA queer story. It's contemporary. We are following Nathan. He is 16 years old and we are coming back into school time, and he seems to have quite a lot going on in his life. He and his best friend, girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, back to best friend, recently broke up, and she is dating another girl from another school, and he's not really over her, and she kind of cheated on him with this girl, so he has a lot of complex feelings about that. His sister is also off at college, leaving him home alone with his, I would say she's depressed, mother who never fully recovered from the death of her husband 5 years ago. However, things get interesting when his best friend decides to try and find him the love of his life, probably a bit out of guilt for cheating on him, and Ollie walks into their world. Ollie was Nathan's best friend 5 years ago, but something happened right before Ollie moved to California that caused them to not speak anymore. Throughout this book, we kind of watch them rekindle their relationship and have some conversations about the past as well as the future. Ollie is deaf. He is completely deaf in one ear and can barely hear anything out of the other. He does prefer to use sign language or communication via phone. For some reason, I did not know that going into this book. I don't know if it's in the synopsis or not, but it is. So if you're looking for a book with disability representation, this book does have it. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. I think I read it in like 2 days. Kason Calendar's writing just draws me in instantly. As soon as I started the audiobook, I was instantly invested in the story and just felt more than happy to listen to it hour after hour while I was doing my work. I think that Kason Calendar's storytelling style and writing does a lot for the story. I feel like story-wise, it's not anything new and shiny, but at the same time, I felt like this was the kind of book that people could get a lot out of it. Our character Nathan is not the most likable character. I spent probably over 50% of this book not liking him. He's someone who's very concerned with his own feelings and his own emotions, so much to the point where he kind of neglects other people's feelings and emotions, and he does that to Ollie, he does that to his friends, he does that to his mother, and it can lead to some very frustrating situations, especially since the fact that he seems relatively self-aware about what he's doing and who he's hurting, but he continues to do it. I will say that means that he has some character growth throughout the story, which we always enjoy seeing, but it definitely takes him a while to get there. I do like that the author made it so that Nathan really had to fight for forgiveness for the things that he did, because he did and said some things that were completely unacceptable, where it would have been completely valid for someone not to forgive him. And teenagers do say and do things that can be very harmful to the people around them, and watching Nathan kind of learn how to handle those situations and avoid those situations, I think could be really great for some young and even older readers. So overall, I thought that this was a fun story. I think it had good pacing, good characters, enough plot to keep me interested, as well as some important themes. All right, and we are on to the final book, a physical book I can actually hold up, and that is A Curious Beginning by Dana Raybourn. And this is a historical mystery book. In this book, we are following Veronica Speedwell, and her last guardian aunt, I guess you could call her, has passed away, and she is getting ready to go out on expeditions to find butterflies. Her passion is catching butterflies and studying them, and she's hoping to travel around the world to do this, which is obviously somewhat unheard of for women to be doing at this time. However, her plans are kind of thwarted when a man shows up and tells her that she's in danger and that she needs to come with him, and her looking for a free train ticket to London, where she needs to go anyway, agrees to this. She is then dropped off at Stark's, I believe is his name, warehouse, and he also is someone who studies the natural sciences and also does taxidermy, and the Baron, the man that rescued her, leaves her with him, promising to return and explain everything. Unfortunately, he is murdered before that happens, sending these two on a journey to figure out what is going on, because whatever it is, it seems to have to do with her birth, her parents, her existence. This was a book that I kind of picked up, then put down, then picked up, and then put down again, because I had other books that I needed to read. I was doing the Aurelium readathon, and just had to get through some other books at the time. Or also, I wanted to finish up the All for the Game series, because I was obsessed with it, and I couldn't focus on this book while I wanted to read the last book in that series. Despite that, despite the fact that I read this over the course of days and days and days, if not weeks, I still gave this book 4 stars. I absolutely loved both of our characters, especially Veronica. There were so many times she said things that just made me laugh out loud. She's just such a bold woman, I guess you could consider her for the time being. She's incredibly intelligent. She's very driven. She's also not ashamed of her passions that she has, whether it's for science or for male lovers or anything along those lines. So she's a really fun character. Stoker was really great. He was a great companion for them, or for Veronica. She was able to bounce ideas off of him. He was able to protect her. She was able to protect him. He definitely has a past that I'm very interested in learning more about. The mystery aspect of this book, I felt, was a bit of a weak link. It felt a little bit like we were walking in circles, where I was kind of like, didn't we already address this? Why are we not moving forward? I felt like very often we weren't learning anything new until the very end, and then everything wrapped up quite quickly and suddenly, and then it was kind of like over with. So I did have to take a star off, and just because I felt like for a mystery book, the mystery was kind of lukewarm. I am interested because it seems like moving forward they will be traveling the world, so hopefully the mysteries will be a little bit more exciting, having a exciting setting, as well as I'm sure the author will continue to improve her skills at mystery writing. All right, guys, so those are the 4 books that I managed to read in the second half of the month. Let me know down below how your reading month went. What was your favorite book? Mine was The King's Men, which is the last book in the All for the Game series. And what was your least favorite? I believe I put mine as Sweet Berries, which I'll put a picture of here. Yeah, that was a book I did not love. Anyway, thank you guys so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!